Hi, Analisa Six here with the Sober Curator and the Lady of Leisure to bring you the June 2023 horoscope for the sun and rising sign of Taurus. Hi, Taurus. We are out of your season now. It's not your season anymore. It's Gemini season. And we still have quite a bit of energy influencing you this month, this coming June. It's the 27th right now. So even though I feel like by the time you listen to this, it might already be June. I'm going to upload it today, so I don't know, but it's May, but we're talking about June. So we enter June with Mercury still in Taurus. So we had a Mercury retrograde that happened in May that was passing through your sign. And it was influencing the area of the chart that had to do with identity and the relationship that we have to ourselves. And Mercury is the planet that represents communication, perceptions, how we're gathering information. And so the big theme of the Mercury retrograde in the Taurus horoscope chart had to do with perspectives around the self-talk we're doing, the way in which we might be expressing the self. This house does not have to do with self-expression, but because it does have to do with our relationship of self, I do think there's little self-expression stuff that can kind of play a role with that. Entering June, we're in Gemini season, and then Mercury is making its way through Taurus, starting at 16 degrees on June 1st. So we'll have about another week and a half of Mercury in Taurus. And so we're kind of, hopefully finding more stability or kind of a clearer idea of our sense of self or who we are moving forward. Mercury is also in conjunct with Uranus at the start of the month. That conjunction happens on the 4th. The 4th and the 5th is when it's really close, but we're kind of already in that orb of influence on the 1st. And so we're going to be feeling that. And this area is, because it's happening in the identity house, the house of the self, when Mercury and Uranus conjoin in this area, there's a breakthrough kind of feeling around the self or the identity. We might have some kind of breakthrough moment or epiphany. My dogs are really excited about some activity going on in the yard. And you might hear some of their barking. They really enjoy chasing the birds, the lizards, and the squirrels out of our yard, and I let them because why not? I don't care about it. But they're very frustrated because they want to get at them. I think I'm just gonna hope that they sometimes they'll calm down. Sometimes if it stops, they'll calm down. Sometimes it's distracting, but I'm gonna try to let it run its course for better or worse. I'm also a dog trainer, so what I'm doing is usually what we advise people not to do, but that's only if you care about your dogs chasing things, where I don't, because I have a very secure yard and it doesn't really transfer to out in the world very often. So I'm okay with it. Okay, getting back to you. So the other thing that we're starting out June with is Venus in Cancer, making her way through the last few degrees of Cancer over the first 5 days. And then she's going to move into Leo on the 5th, I believe. Leo on the 5th or the 6th? I'm pretty sure it's on the 5th. Yeah, she moves into Leo on the 5th. And so we'll talk about where that's going to hit, but we're going to get back to the 3rd here in a second. So I'll hit that later. Mars is in Leo. So we start out May with Mars in Leo. And the area that this is hitting for the Taurus horoscope is the area that represents home and family. And so when Mars is passing through the house of home and family, we feel really restless in this area. And we also feel more combative. So we could feel more combative and restless with the people that we share our space with, or we could feel more combative and restless towards family members that we might not live with, but that we share, that ancestral connection to. So this can be a little bit of a rough time with family. If you're planning on visiting family or spending time with family, you might, kind of feel like you're more irritable or not in the mood for it. And then same thing, if you live with family or you have kids or a husband or roommates, you might have some conflict in the home. You might feel a desire to get out of the home and go explore some other terrain, stay somewhere else. This isn't a travel house, but it often does want to push us to move or be somewhere else for a while and kind of get out of where we've been feeling stagnant. Because Mars is in Leo in this area at the beginning of the month, we also could be feeling like we're maybe having kind of some child wounds or ancestral wounds kicked up in a way that we need to work through. This area often is tied to the parents. And so if there's any issues with our parents that we're working through, whether it's within ourselves or actually actively with them, those are themes that could potentially be coming up for the Taurus sun and rising person as well this month while Mars is passing through Leo. Jupiter is now in your sign of Taurus. It entered in May, so we've already been under its influence, but it'll be passing through 3 and 9 degrees. So all the way from 3 degrees through up until 9. So when we end June, Jupiter will be at 9 degrees of Taurus. So, you know, this is the area again of the chart that represents the identity and the self. And so when Jupiter's here, we feel this desire to grow beyond maybe where we've been within ourselves. So if we've been feeling, I mean, the thing that comes to mind is like, if you've been sick of yourself or sick, you know how like you've been, if you feel like you've been kind of stuck in a rut, you know, or you, let's say that like there was one way you used to wear your hair, or there was one way that you used to keep your space or your things, or maybe there's certain style that you've adhered to for a certain period of time. And then all of a sudden you just are sick of it. You're like, I kind of want to redefine myself, which is not common for Taurus, because Taurus tends to be one of those signs that gets really comfortable and set in its ways. It's like, no, I'm not a this person, I'm a this person. Like, you know, I don't wear this type of thing. I never have, and I never will. And, you know, that's a very fixed way to be. Taurus is fixed earth, or, you know, like I've never liked this, so I never will. And then every once in a while things happen in life where the winds of change come in, or something happens that kind of makes us reflect on whether or not we still are in alignment with that, or whether or not we still feel that way, which this full moon that's coming is emphasizing that I'm about to talk about. But having Jupiter passing through this area in the horoscope chart for the rest of the year really has you reflecting on that relationship to self and the identity, and maybe the way that you've related to yourself over the years and the, you know, years past, over the last 12 years, because Jupiter is a 12-year cycle. Maybe you're kind of over it. Maybe there's things that you're willing to try and be more adventurous about. Maybe you're down to change your hairstyle. Maybe you're down to wear something that in the past you never would have worn. Maybe you're in a position where you're like, you know, those beliefs that I had about who I was are starting to limit me, and they're starting to make me feel stuck. And maybe I'm getting sick of feeling that way, or maybe I'm getting sick of this story that I've told myself for so long. So that's possible with Jupiter passing through the area of identity. We feel like we're ready to grow and evolve maybe into a self or identity that's more in alignment with some of the things that we've been exposing ourselves to or learning throughout our journey, you know. So it's supportive for you to do that. And I think Mercury with this Uranus, you know, combustion, or I guess it's not a combustion, conjunction, that kind of energy is supportive of having those breakthroughs where there's kind of like this need to have a new story, change the story, you know. So that's positive for you. Let's talk about the full moon that we're having on June 3rd. So on June 3rd, we have a full moon that's going to be at 13 degrees of Sagittarius, and that energy, where it's hitting in the horoscope chart for the Taurus individual, is happening in the area that represents shared resources and finances. So the sun in Gemini is going to be in the area that has to do with our finances and also our sense of self-worth and material security in the world. It's actually the house that Taurus traditionally rules, but it's in Gemini in the horoscope chart. And so our perspectives around that stuff is highlighted. And then the moon is going to be in the opposite house, which is the 8th house that represents shared resources. So anybody that we share our resources with, that could be our, you know, usually it's considered to be marital partners, but it could also be people that we have those kind of financial relationships with, like business partners or roommates or family members. It's also the area that rules inheritance. It rules investments, loans. It's also the area that represents sex and intimacy through sex, and also our relationship to death and, you know, kind of those cycles of death and rebirth and creation. It's the Scorpio house, but in the horoscope, Sagittarius is here. And so this is illuminated for the Taurus horoscope. And the full moon is an opportunity for us to manifest things in our life or to release and get rid of things in our life. And we can do both simultaneously. We can clear out the old and welcome in what we want to call in. And so Juno is actually also a part of this moon to some degree. She's not I don't think she's in an exact conjunction, but she's pretty like within an orb of influence. And Juno is the asteroid that represents marriage and contractual partnership. And so again, these like kind of themes are highlighted during this full moon for all of us, but it's very much highlighted for the Taurus individual to be reflecting on your money and your shared resources and how you're making money, but also how you're utilizing your income with somebody else or an institution, and the plans that you have around that. And so this is a good time if you're looking at trying to manifest more income or money into your life, that's supported, that manifestation. If you're looking at maybe getting rid of some things in your life that are not supporting material security or stability, that's also supported. If there's some kind of financial planning that you need to do, that's also supported. Getting financial advisement is supported during this as well. Also, if there's certain dynamics that are happening within a marriage that need to be worked out or reflected upon, that is also up for review and a theme during this full moon with it happening in those houses. So that's something that, you kind of start June off, in that place if you're a Taurus sun or rising, with some of those themes there. So it could be a really constructive time, if you're kind of feeling all this energy for change early on in the month, and then you're like, okay, how am I, utilizing my resources to really implement that change into my life in a constructive way? How is it impacting the people that I am closest to and share my life with? And then also, what are the narratives or the stories that I have about it? That's also something that's super highlighted. Taurus is known to be a pretty resourceful energy. Like it likes to build, it likes to create and create solid structures, but it can also be very limiting because Taurus will be very frugal and sometimes create stories or narratives that it needs to live within its means in a very specific way, which makes it hard sometimes to see the bigger picture or the dream beyond that. And so, Gemini and Sagittarius have a lot to do with stories and narratives, belief systems, values. And so this full moon, the theme for all of us as a collective are value systems and perspectives and beliefs. So what's highlighted here is value systems, perspectives, and beliefs around money and shared resources, self-worth. And what are those things that we could be limiting ourselves, or holding back from, where maybe we can see a broader, bigger perspective, which is very Gemini Sagittarius. Gemini sees things in a more factual way, like here are the facts. This is how much money we have, and this is how we can spend it, or how we can save it, or where we can invest it, right? Like that's a very kind of like analytical way that is mathematical and fact-based. And then Sagittarius sees kind of beyond the facts or where it's at currently and sees maybe more of how it could be expanded upon in a way that sometimes feels unattainable because it's more of a dream or more of a idea, but it's also kind of like, well, let's think about that idea and let's put it out into the ether, and then let's set our intentions towards that idea or dream, and let's see if we can actually accomplish that. And sometimes Taurus people are so focused on the here and now of what's possible that when you start talking about the possibilities, they get very overwhelmed and flooded because they can't see outside of the confines of what the structure is that they've created for themselves. And it's really hard for people that are more expansive or dreamers or more into manifesting this bigger vision to sometimes be around people that are so linear or structured in the here and now, because they both can work together to create the dream. But if one's on two, like if the dreamer is too in the clouds, they can't look at the reality of how to make that happen. So they just look delusional. And sometimes they don't accomplish what they want to accomplish because they can't work hard enough at something for long enough to see the benefits. Whereas the Taurus person or the linear person is really good at seeing, okay, here's the facts. And I know if I do this, X plus X equals this, and this is the reality of what's going to happen. And so they'll make that happen, but their dream or their vision might only stay there. It might not grow or expand upon. And so then they might just kind of be treading water for a really long time because they're just staying within what this system is that they have without trying to see past it. So the value of this Gemini Sagittarius energy being in these fixed houses for a Taurus fixed person is that you might start to see beyond what you've been able to see. You might start to be thinking more outside of your own box or your own construct. And, that Mercury Uranus energy might be there kind of helping you have those breakthroughs, especially with Jupiter and Taurus. Like Jupiter and Taurus is like, let's expand upon what you're building. Let's not just like stay within this box that you've been in for a while. So that's something about the full moon that I really like for Taurus. I've watched a lot of people like in my life where there's a blockage towards believing that something could be true, not whether or not it actually is true. And so sometimes it starts with just believing that it could be true, even if you're not sure how to get there yet. Like I wanted to move to Southern California since I was 16. I had plenty of opportunities to do it, tons. But there was this intuitive part of me that never felt like it was quite the right time for a lot of very like intuitive reasons. But then there was also practical linear reasons too. And I'm a very follow my heart person. A couple years into living in the Bay Area, I started to want to leave the Bay for Joshua Tree, like a year into living in the Bay. And I started telling my husband that I thought we should buy a house in Palm Desert. And he thought I was crazy because he's like, what would we do there? And I'm like, well, we could work in LA and live in Palm Desert. You can have like a 3-bedroom house in Palm Desert for dirt cheap. Like this looks awesome. And so my dream, my vision started when I was 24, I think. And we didn't actualize it until I was 30 because the steps that it took for us to get ourselves to a place where we could actually make that dream real, in the way that we wanted to, took that long. If I had been on my own though, I probably would have just done it if I was by myself, because that's how I am. I fly by the seat of my pants and I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to do it. I'm just going to do it. But my husband is a lot more practical, and he's like, no, if we're going to do this, let's do it right. Like, let's make sure that we're together people. We have credit, we have money, we have like our ducks in a row. Like he wanted to do it in more of like this Taurus way, where it's very practical and smart, essentially, not so much Sagittarius, where the Sagittarius is like, I'm just going to go and see and find out. And I'm not going to have anything together. I'll figure it out when I get there. That's very me. We moved to Oakland like that. And it was very traumatic for my husband. So I was like, okay, slow and steady wins the race. We'll do it that way, And so we did, but it's just, two different ways of getting to the same destination. One though might be more of the way that you get what you really want, where one might be that you screw the pooch and go too fast. And maybe you don't get what you want right away, but then you figure it out later. Right. So I think that all can be true and work and be possible. It's just a matter of what you want to do in life and what works for you. And I think this full moon is an opportunity for Taurus to maybe break out of some comfort zones and see the dream or the vision in some other ways, while still taking the parts of Taurus that are very good at, putting the plan into place and looking at reality and making, that's such a gift that Taurus energy has. But, in succession with the freedom energy, then you can really end up making positive changes that are, a little bit of both, I guess is what I mean. So that's a big theme for the beginning of June. After the full moon, Venus is going to enter Leo on the 5th. So I already mentioned that, but let's talk about where it's hitting. So we had Mars in Leo already, and I was saying that it kind of kicks up some dust in the area of home, where there might be some conflict. Pallas Athena is here too, and she's kind of like a female Mars energy. And so there's a lot of like opportunity for some conflict around home life. Venus comes into Leo though, and she's here to kind of bring more harmony and love and resolution to this mix. And so whatever conflict or challenges get kicked up, Venus comes in and is here to help figure out constructive solutions and resolve it and bring more love back into the home space. And so she's going to be in Leo until October. And so we're going to have this theme with Venus here for a really long time this year. And she's also going to be retrograde, I think, starting in August. So, or no, it starts in July. So we're kind of experiencing, this intro to Venus and Leo starting in June and influencing that area of the horoscope for Taurus. So Again, you know, Mars will still be there the rest of the month, so we'll still be feeling some of that challenging energy, but Venus will really help to kind of marry, you know, some harmony or some balance or resolution in that. So that's positive. Saturn's going to be stationing retrograde in Pisces around the 17th. And I talked about that in the June forecast. So I'm not going to get too into every little transit for every sign. I talk about all those transits in the June 2023 astrology forecast. So if you want to know all the transits that are happening for June, watch that video. And the transits are also more relevant to you. Whoa, another animal out there. The transits are more relevant to you in regards to your personal birth chart. So it's nice, like the horoscopes are fun because it gives you like a general theme. But then the transits, if you really want to know how the transits are going to impact you for the month, find the transits and then pull up your birth chart and actually look at where that's hitting in your actual birth chart, because it's going to be more accurate for you than the way that it hits in a horoscope chart. That's why I don't really go too into them. I just go more into like the shifts of the personal planets into the houses, because that's more kind of like the energetic frequency on a whole. Horoscopes are super general, so I just prefer to do it that way. So Mercury enters Gemini on the 11th, and where that happens in your chart is in the horoscope chart is going to be the area of finances. So, you know, that full moon kicks up all this energy to like kind of expand the dream or the plan or the way that you're kind of seeing how you're utilizing your resources. And then Mercury is going to be here until the 28th, 27th, 28th. And it's going to be allowing your brain and your mind to kind of analyze more of your financial security and stability and all the moving parts. So how do we get our money to work for us? How do we build security, stability? How do I get smart with this plan, essentially, that I'm starting to weave or create? So I'm really excited for Mercury in Gemini. Mercury rules Gemini, and it's going to hopefully be a nice relief after some of the, you know, retrograde tension that we've had. So I'm really excited about that. The other thing that we have happening in this area of the chart for you is our new moon. So we have a new moon happening in Gemini in June at 26 degrees of Gemini, and it's happening on June 18th. And I think it's the 17th for Pacific time and the 18th for Eastern. I lost my page in my other book. Oh, here we go. So the new moon is June 18th in Eastern time and June 17th. And yes, I was right about that. So 26 degrees of Gemini. So again, this is the area, like these houses are what's highlighted for Taurus, you know, the house of money and financial stability and security. So again, new moons are great times to set intention. So if you want to manifest more money and more abundance and financial security into your life, this new moon is a great time to set intentions for that on the 18th. Shortly after that, a few days later, we are going to enter Cancer season. So the sun will be moving into Cancer on the 21st. This is summer solstice. We're officially entering summer. And the area that this influences for the Taurus horoscope is the third house. So the third house is the area that Gemini traditionally rules. It's the house that rules communication, information, perspectives. Also is the house that rules our neighbors, our siblings. And so those things are highlighted in Cancer season. Excuse me, for Taurus. You just had Venus passing through here in May. So that area has already been highlighted by Venus, but now the sun's coming to illuminate that. And then, and the sun, wherever the sun's passing through brings vitality and energy. So your brain is really getting kind of this boost. And you might also be maybe more emotionally empathic or aware of other people's feelings during this time. You might be more sensitive yourself during this time. And then towards the end of the month, we're going to have, Mercury enter Cancer on the 27th. And so that mercurial energy is going to enter its home house, but it's not super, you know, I prefer Mercury in Gemini, but Mercury is going to join the Cancer party at the end of the month. And, you know, again, it's going to enhance our empathic awareness, you know, our feeling centers. And so this is kind of true for all of us. Like the June period, it's a little bit more introverted and introspective for you on an individual level, but on a collective level, it's a little bit more like June starts out a little bit more in an extroverted way with a lot of this kind of like fire trine energy, even though for you, it's still a very internal introverted process. And then by the end of the month, we're very much feeling more like we want to be introverted and hunkered in. And the Cancer energy is hitting in the area of the horoscope for Taurus that is more self-focused or internally focused and needing to really kind of be with your own thoughts, your own feelings, and maybe people that are close to you, like family, but not necessarily, you're not feeling super extroverted in June like some of the other signs might be. I think that's it. I think that's everything that I wanted to talk about for you, Taurus. Good luck. Hopefully the plans and the things that come to fruition that you want to start to kind of map out, hopefully it's fun, and it's probably good for you to carve out some time away from your home life if it feels ungrounded, and get some creative energy or some joy kind of flow in, maybe with some travel plans or some, even just some like little getaways or road trips. Like the Gemini energy, you might kind of be feeling like you want to be more resourceful and save your money, but by the time that things are moving into Cancer, you might start feeling like short distance trips, like little quick road trips to wherever, being near water. A quick road trip near water would be really fulfilling and rejuvenating for you once we enter Cancer season after the 21st. All right, Taurus, good luck, and I will see you next month.